Thank you, Jody. Did you write that? I did. Wow, let's give her some more love. That was awesome. It was awesome. Thank you. Hello. Hi. It's good to be with you again.
It's good to have you here with us.
Thank you. This year we've been looking at the extraordinary life. This month, the topic has been home. And today, the talk title is H.O.M.E, which is home. And when I think of home, I'm always reverted back to this little kid growing up in the Bronx. And I don't know about you, but when the holidays come up, the end of the year, whether we're celebrating Thanksgiving or Christmas or Kwanzaa or Ramadan or the New Year or Festivus, Festivus, that's the holiday for the rest of us who don't celebrate the holidays. It actually comes out of a sitcom called Seinfeld. And, for those who don't celebrate, any of the holidays, it's where you gather around a pole and you air your grievances. So this way you don't enter the new year with all of that stuff. But I always like bringing up Festivus because it actually is a holiday now that is celebrated this time of year. At any rate, most of the movies on television or even in the box office want to paint this glorious going back home story, and sitting around the dinner table and everything is just glorious and we're family. And that happens for a lot of families. But more often than not, it may not be the way you grew up. It may not necessarily be what is happening in our world and in our society today. If we're really going to look at what's happening and who is around us and who gathers with us, one of the things that we get to recognize is that coming home for the holidays is not necessarily a good thing. That for many people who have grown up with trauma and abuse and divorce or death, that hero's journey really started way before that person ever left home. I'm no stranger to childhood trauma. My dad died when I was 4. I was molested as a kid. My coming out story meant that I got to leave home at 15. And so home doesn't necessarily bring up the warm and fuzzies all the time. And I think that our society wants to make home this place of the warms and fuzzies, and what we do is we disregard parts of ourselves that need some TLC. Now, I know y'all didn't come here to spiritual community to get a downer. And yet, what is a downer about the reality of our human experience? If we cannot come to grips and come to terms with maybe the person that's sitting next to us, that their life might not be that place of the warm and fuzzies when we talk about the holidays, then how are we really community? And how are we really, really uplifting one another and actually revealing the truth about ourselves, about God, and about each other? You see, I'm not the person who wants to deny and make believe that it's not there. In our spiritual mind treatment, which is our affirmative prayer, we have two ways of doing that spiritual mind treatment. One is simply affirming the truth, and the other one is the denial or the turning away from and saying, yes, that's there, but that's not the truth of who I am. This is the truth of who I am. That we get an opportunity to see what the human experience is, and yet we get to go, and with that, that's not the truth, the absolute truth of who I am. Yes, these are things that happened to me. They happened maybe for me. They happened around me. They happened near me. They happened. But this is not the absolute truth of my life. And that sometimes we are all on different paths and different roadways to get to this truth, but we're all still on that path. And some of us may still be tearful and crying and in agony. Some of us might still be in that mourning and grieving state about home, about our trauma, about our childhood experiences, and even about our adult experiences, because let's not forget, we just came through a pandemic. And with that, we do get this opportunity to recognize that this is the human experience. And yet, my expression, who I really am at my core, is not that. I get to remember that there are some of us on this path, though, where this is so real and so true that we think that this is our life, that we think that this is all there is. And so we get to be gentle with one another. We get to hold each other's hands. We get to walk side by side with one another while we gently are the guides to say, yes, beloved, this might be your experience, and yet this is not the all of who you are. You see, in the four kingdoms of consciousness, as we begin to recognize that we are evolving in our awareness, the first stage of that is that life happens to us. We're the victims, and life is happening to me. Guess what happened to me yesterday? Right? We think that life is happening to us. But in fact, as we begin to mature spiritually and as we begin to grow and learn the truth about who we are, we enter a second state of consciousness and awareness, and that state is that life happens by me. And what I get to do is I get to release this idea of that I'm a victim and that life is happening to me, and I get to embrace that through my own efforts, through my study, that I get to use the power of my words, that I get to use the power of my consciousness, and that I get to simply call forth the experiences that I want to have in my life. Now, this is not magic or wizardry. I got that because I was watching The Wizard of Oz yesterday. Wizardry. This is not wizardry that I'm simply, commanding it to be so, but by speaking the word and hearing it, by beginning to have that word and that idea drop into my subconscious obeys and simply looks for and creates opportunities for me to experience that which I've called forth. Life happening by me. Where I create parking spaces, palaces, prince or princesses, where I begin to, quote unquote, use the law of attraction to bring to me that which I want to experience. You see, as we continue to grow spiritually by taking classes, by meeting with our practitioners, by being in sacred service, by contributing to our spiritual community, what begins to happen there is that we manifest a lot of stuff and we get to go, whoa, this stuff works. But there has to be more. And the more of that is that we release control. How many of us are control freaks? I know I am. But look, if I'm not driving, I'm not going. I need to be in control. Right? We release control and we recognize that life is actually way more powerful and that life is happening through us. That we're simply a channel, if you will, of life. That life was here before we got here. Life is be here after we leave here in the physical realm. But we are life itself. Do not be confused. You are life itself. You're having this human experience, this human expression. You are the unique and unrepeatable way life is happening as you right now. But that's step 4. I go too quickly. I'm still on step 3, where we're this channel, where we speak like Jesus the Christ spoke when he said, "It is not I that do the work, but it is the Father that does the work." That we begin to simply be this channel of grace, of love, of joy, that we recognize that it's happening through us. And through even more and more study and more devotion and more releasing and letting go, we arrive at this place of life happens as me. That there's nothing that separates me from God. Nothing. Now, I'm not talking about a deity, y'all, that, is writing down if you've been good or bad. That's Santa. That's in December. Okay. I'm talking about the living spirit that has created everything out of itself. Therefore, everything is the unique and unrepeatable way that God, this power, this presence shows up. Life as me. Life as me. God as me. That which is true of spirit, that which is true of God is true of me. That which is true of spirit, that which is true of God is true of you. So now let's go back. Let's go back to home. And this idea that sometimes home is not a safe place. Now, in the human experience, I may not feel safe. I may not want to go back there. But when I recognize the truth of who I am, that home, H.O.M.E, is a haven of my expression. Haven of my expression. That it is the safe place of my being, right? Haven means safe. When I say expression, I mean my being, myself. It's the safe place for my being. And when we return home, not only for the holidays, but holidays meaning holy days, and that every day is a holy day, and I return to this indwelling place where I recognize that I am one with all of life. Wait a minute. Now all of a sudden I want to go home. Now all of a sudden I want to know this truth about myself. Now all of a sudden that place that I call home, this indwelling place, I want to be like Dorothy. I want to click my heels. Hold on. Wait, everybody click your heels. Click your heels. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. All of a sudden, when we recognize where home really is, that it's not the physical dwelling place, but it is indeed the dwelling place right within me that has never been hurt, never been harmed, never been touched, that it is there. When I recognize that my life is life itself, that there's nothing that separates my life from God, it is when I return to that place that home is safe, that home is my haven of my expression. Travis was bringing up songs today, right? So I'll bring up 2 songs. I'm still an old school Luther Vandross. I'm going to educate some folks today. Luther Vandross, an amazing artist and singer and lyricist. You know, he says a chair is still a chair, even though there's nobody sitting there. But a house is not a home when there's one of us that's not there. So when I go home, that is where God meets me. That is where the I am presence meets me. That is home. That is where after I've been out for a long day of self-will run riot, doing life my way, thinking that I'm it because, don't you know I have a degree? Don't you know? I crack myself up sometimes. We think that we're it. We think that we're so like whatever because, we have the car, the house, the wife, the husband. We have the this, the that, and we think, yeah, I've arrived. Or we have the titles and we have all of this and we think we're it, we finally get home to that indwelling place and go, oh yeah, those are just the accessories of my human experience. Who I really am is so much more than my title. Who I really am is so much more, and I've been wasting my day thinking that, I'm running stuff. And when we just really get down to it, when we really get down to the tofurkey, to the meat and potatoes, when we really just get down to it, it's like, oh, life as me. My life is the life of God. My life is life itself. Simply having this human experience. I'm not my traumas. Song number 2, India Irie, when she says, I am light, right? When she says, I am not the things my family did. I am not the voices in my head. I am not the pieces of my brokenness inside. I am light. Where she reminds us that the things that happen to us are not who we are. But at the core and at the center of who we are is light, is that I am presence, is the H.O.M.E, is God. And so, beloveds, I get that, like me, some of us have had very challenging times. So much so that it makes us want to cry, that it makes us want to weep for human suffering and for the way humanity still suffers today. And in those times, if we can simply just cross into that place and remember that home is right here. Home is the place of the indwelling I am. Home is that place where I remember that life is happening as me. That irrespective, but including what has happened in your lives, that I get to see home in you, and that I get to be that reminder and say, come, beloved, let's go home. Let's go to that indwelling place. Let's pause for a moment. Yes, this might have been what happened, and through our spiritual practice, we get to come home to our true selves. So how is that we get to do that? I've used this many times here and everywhere that I go, because it's so easy to remember that one of the tools that we use here in Centers for Spiritual Living is spiritual mind treatment. So hold up your left hand with me and remember that this is a way to pray. This is a way to pray that you always have with you. I like things that I always have with me. They're always with me. My prayer hand is always with me. And that little pinky, A-L-L. See the A-L-L, right? That's the pinky the pinky is the smallest finger. It needs to feel safe. And so in spiritual mind treatment, I remember and I simply bring to mind that God is A-L-L, there is. God is all there is, right? And then the next finger, especially on my left hand, is that marriage finger, right? That commitment. And that's where in our human experience we say the two shall be one. And that even though I think that God might be separate from me, I remember that God and I are one. We're married. It's a one thing. It's inseparable, right? And then don't worry about this next finger, y'all. It's not the one you wave out the car when they cut you off. Be nice now. This one is where I make tall affirmations, tall orders. I make them big. My life is good. Everything is coming together for my good. I am abundant. I am peace. I am joy. Everything is always working out for my highest good. The world wants to be kind to me. The world wants to bless me. This is where I make tall affirmations about my life, about whatever situation that I'm praying about. And then I point to the gratitude. And I'm reminded of everything that has already come to fruition in my life. And I become grateful that this word that I speak is the truth. And then I let it go. And when I let it go, it's a thumbs up. Life is good. So that spiritual practice brings us back to center. It brings me back to knowing that life is not happening to me, that life is happening as me. That right where I am, that indwelling power and presence is living and having its way as me. And these are the times that I definitely want to come back home for the holy days. Each and every day is that sacred day, that holy day, where I remind myself that I am not the mistakes, that I am not broken, that I am not what the world might tell me that I am, but where I know that I am light. And it is always here where I am at home, haven of my expression. Know that you are loved, and so it is.